here, of course, at NewsX World. We will continue to bring you all updates on that developing situation. However, we move over to South Asia next, where strong political reactions in India after US President Donald Trump has announced a 25% tariff on Indian imports starting on August the 1st. The Congress party slammed the move, calling it a catastrophic failure of foreign policy, blaming Prime Minister Narendra Modi's close alignment with Trump, including the slogan, Ab Ki Bar Trump Sarkar. Trump says India's high tariff non-monetary trade barriers and continued energy and defense ties with Russia justify the decision. An additional penalty will also be imposed, though details remain unclear. The move puts India's $87 billion export market to the United States at risk, ending months of trade talks and raising questions over the future of bilateral ties. We're now joined by Peter Cardillo, who's a chief economist at Spartan, to discuss this in further detail. Peter joins us live from New York. Thank you very much for joining us, Peter, on the programme. What are going to be the immediate implications of President Donald Trump's 25% tariff on Indian imports, particularly for India's export market to the US, which is valued at $87 billion?
Well, I think, it's a big blow to the Indian exports, and it means that if these tariffs do go into effect for a sustained period of time, that India is going to have to come to the bargaining table. And, I think it's somewhat politically motivated, but I think this is Trump's way of getting India in line with his wishes. And that close relationship that he had with the prime minister seems to have dissipated, at least for now. And so that means hard times. And it also means that Trump means business. In fact, not only did he impose 25% tariffs on imported goods, he also put a penalty, an extra levy, because of India's purchase of Russian oil. So I think this is, a tactic that it will eventually lead to some sort of more coordinated agreement. As I said, it'll probably go into effect. I mean, we have one more day before August the 1st. So I don't expect anything to happen. But perhaps maybe within the next 2 weeks, I would imagine that India will have to come and try and submit perhaps a deal that will be pleasing to the United States, or face the consequences of the Indian economy deteriorating, and that would not be good news, even for us, because India is a fairly large trading partner.
Yes, of course, Peter. What is going to be the direct consequences on the American consumer? What kind of goods are going to raise in price? How are the American people going to feel these measures?
Well, I would suspect that we're going to see higher inflation. Higher inflation means that the Fed is not likely to be as generous as perhaps the markets would want it to be. So it affects us because we have higher inflation on, obviously, if someone is buying an imported product from India. And I doubt very much that for a long period of time that it will be absorbed by companies. Up until now, there seems to have been some of the inflationary aspect being absorbed by corporate America. But I don't think corporate America is going to continue to do that. So it's a negative in terms of It's a negative for the U.S. consumer in terms of higher prices, higher inflation.
Yes, and Peter, what about, obviously Donald Trump mentions the fact that India is Russia's largest buyer of energy. How is this going to affect India in the long run as well, especially if these additional tariffs come in once Donald Trump's deadline runs out for Vladimir Putin to make progress on this Ukraine war, and if he doesn't, then that's also going to affect India's economic position as well. How do you analyze the fact that India might be facing even higher tariffs than this?
Absolutely. As I said that at the beginning of the conversation, that there's an added levy because of India's purchasing of Russian oil. I think that's another way of telling India it's time that you increase your purchases here from the United States. And I think that again, another tactic to bring India in line with the wishes of the United States.
Also, Peter, do you think India is in the position to retaliate here? Obviously, we saw the European Union and obviously China, who have more leverage than others, they were in the position to retaliate. Is India in that same position? Does it have that leverage?
No, I don't think it has the leverage that China has. In fact, it looks as though perhaps there'll be a 90-day extension if President Trump decides to extend the deadline for China. The ramifications are quite different. So I think India at this point is going to have to try and do whatever it can to make a better deal and get back on the good graces of the President of the United States.
How do you think this is going to affect relations, India-US relations in the long run? Obviously, this is a trade policy. Donald Trump calls them reciprocal. However, do you think this is going to affect the relationship, the bilateral relationship in the long run, or is it just a temporary measure?
I would hope, and I think that it's probably a temporary situation. Obviously, it's a steep tariff, and I don't think anyone in India is happy about this. And so I kind of think that it's just a temporary situation.
Peter Cardillo, thank you very much for joining us on the program, as always. Well, that's all that we